everybody. It's a rare, beautiful day here in the wintertime in Michigan. Clear skies. Unfortunately, the Great Lakes tend to put a lot of moisture into the air during the winter. If it's not lake effect snow, but it's clouds, so the rare clear day probably means everyone who has access to an airplane's out flying, so I'm going to have to do an extra good job looking for traffic and keeping my eye on the traffic map on my iPad. We'll get out flying. We'll head down to Port Clinton, Ohio, maybe check out Cedar Point, and on the way we'll talk a little bit about the process I used when I bought this airplane. Talk to you in a bit. Willer on tower, Mooney 16 Delta Romeo. Hold short 23 left at Golf, VFR southbound.
Mooney 16 Delta Romeo, Willer on tower, runway 23 left at Golf, wind 250 at 5. Clear for takeoff, southbound departure approved. Traffic on the go on the right side is a Cessna for the right close pattern for the parallel.
Alright, clear for takeoff, 23 left at Golf, I have the traffic in sight, Mooney 16 Delta Romeo. Alright, clear down left.
Cessna right. 3 uniform white, traffic departing the parallels and the Mooney.
Power going full. And engine instruments are good. Airspeed's alive. 64 and rotate. Positive rate. You're up.
Departure 46 Delta, remain 2 miles north of the airport for traffic. The departure into the runway 23 right, Cessna and right close traffic.
We'll remain 2 miles north of the airport, 346 Delta.
And we'll accelerate to 120.
Cessna 3 uniform Mike, traffic 5 miles northwest of the airport, 2,400. Southeastbound is a Archer, inbound for the parallel, remaining 2 miles north.
Roger that, 3 uniform Mike, searching for the traffic.
The fuel pump off.
Mooney 6 Delta Romeo, remain clear of the Detroit class Bravo.
Or remain clear of the Bravo, Mooney 16 Delta Romeo. So I don't like to climb much more than 1,000 feet per minute. It starts to hurt my my one good year, so we're keeping it right around 130 miles per hour indicated, and that's this cold weather giving us about 1,000 foot per minute climb. Alright, so this will be part one of a two-part series on how I bought this airplane. Just one thing to note, keep in mind I'm just an ordinary guy with an airplane, so this is not an instructional video. You can do whatever the heck you want when you buy an airplane, but I figured I would share how the process I used for buying this one. This is the third airplane I've owned. I owned, my first airplane was a 1971 Cessna 172L. That one had the 0320 engine with the 150 horsepower engine in it. Then I had my eyes on becoming an airline pilot because I liked flying so much.
23 left, 260 at 6, clear to land, traffic on a
of course that means
parallel, the Cessna 1100.
Need a lot of multi-engine time, so I decided to buy myself a multi-engine airplane. Second airplane was a 1959 Piper Apache. That was the one with also the 0320s, but it was the higher compression 0320s that made 160 horsepower on that. And then I owned that airplane for a few years. Sold it when I got that first airline job, and if you know anything about airlines, they really don't pay worth a crap, especially when you're a new person starting out at a regional. So, sold that. Then finally, when I got furloughed from my last airline, I went back to being an engineer. And when I became an engineer again, I decided that I really wanted to get another airplane. And thankfully, my wife sort of brought it up to me. I was kind of started looking for airplanes to buy, just kind of covertly broaching the subject with her when she came to me one day and says, you know what, driving sucks, we need to buy another airplane. So I was like, yes. Alright, so I learned a lot of lessons buying those first two airplanes. They were actually different lessons with each airplane, but I rolled those lessons learned into the process I used for buying this airplane, so hopefully this is useful. So the first step of buying an airplane is deciding what airplane you want, and that's a pretty big topic, so that's going to be the subject of this first part.
Saratoga 44 Hotel, Twitter departure radar contact.
The first step is obviously identifying kind of the type of airplane you want. That's the pretty obvious one. I'm not really going to go into that too much. I'll assume at this point you already know that you want to buy a 172 or a Piper Cherokee or something like that. So you have that done. Now you need to...
Number 6860 Hotel, contact Cleveland approach 124.2.
Now you need to determine of all of the airplanes of the type that you want that are available on the market, which one should you buy?
260 Hotel, Cleveland approach 124.2, 24.2.
So the first step, obviously, is setting a budget for yourself. And the budget needs to not only include the price of the airplane, because there's a lot more that goes into buying an airplane money-wise than just the price of the plane. For example, after you buy the airplane, you bring it home, you're going to have to pay sales tax at whatever sales tax rate is in your state. Registration fees, possibly in your state. There's also a good possibility your airplane's going to need some upgrades. So the very first step is, so in my day job, I'm an engineer, as I said. Whenever we start a new project, the very first step that we do is create the requirements of the product that we're making. What is that thing that we're designing required to do? And along with the requirements, there's a handful of things we'll do that may start out as requirements, but end up becoming more like desired things. So the first step is determining what are the requirements in any airplane you want to buy. It may be certain avionics, it may be aircraft features, it may be a nice paint job, maybe a low time engine, whatever that is, it's it's up to you. For me, my requirements on this airplane is I wanted to buy a Mooney M20E, the E model. And I wanted to have a certain vintage. I can't remember the year right now. It's been 11 years since I bought this airplane. But I want to say it was like 1967 and earlier. So it's 1964 through 67. There's a handful of reasons for that. That's a topic for a different video. But anyway, a lot of those old Moonies had what they called the shotgun instrument panel, which instead of this, the modern 6-pack like this airplane has, they have instruments kind of scattered randomly about the panel. And since I do a fair amount of instrument flying, that wasn't acceptable to me. So one of my requirements is a standard 6-pack. Another one of my requirements would be I required an engine analyzer, at least capable of reading all the cylinders, cylinder head temperatures, as well as exhaust gas temperatures. I required a IFR approach certified GPS, and for me a 2-axis autopilot that at least was able to do altitude hold. That was a lesson I learned from owning the Piper Apache. Is part of the reason I bought a Mooney, because I like to do a lot of cross-country flying. And hand flying the airplane cross-country all the time is a real bummer. So those are my requirements. So the next step is to actually assign a value to the requirements. And by value, I mean how much, if you find an airplane that you really like that doesn't meet one of your requirements, how much is it going to cost you to upgrade that airplane to meet that requirement? So value doesn't necessarily mean, what does the market give you for selling if that airplane, like if you put it in, you went to resell it, because there are websites out there like VREF that will tell you, if you have this GPS, it's worth this much when you go to sell your airplane. That's not the important part. The important part is how much is it going to cost you to add that upgrade, to buy that equipment, as well as cover, the installation costs, how much labor it's going to be, etc. So each of your features, that needs to then go into the budget. So when you start buying when you start looking at airplanes, you don't necessarily need to look for an airplane that meets all your requirements. You can buy an airplane that doesn't meet all your requirements and then plan to upgrade it later. So what I did was I created a spreadsheet, and that spreadsheet listed all the airplanes, the sales price of the airplanes, and which of my requirements it met and which were missing, and then how much was it going to cost me to upgrade that airplane to meet the requirements that this airplane did not have. And then you can start looking at, does it actually fit into your budget? Because the airplane just by itself, the purchase price may meet your budget, but you may find that after you need to put in the upgrades that you need to put in, that it's no longer going to fit within your budget. The other thing is also, is engine time. That's another thing that needs to factor into your budget, as well as is how long it's going to be until you need to pay for another overhaul in the engine.
Number 283, Bravo Golf Radar, contact 10 miles southeast.
One of the things you're going to want to do is find out what each hour of engine time is worth on your airplane. It's pretty easy to calculate. You just determine how much an engine overhaul is going to cost, full in, including all the labor, plus the cost of the overhaul itself, the labor for removing the engine, putting it in a box, shipping it off to the overhaul facility, shipping it back, reinstalling it, and everything. And then you just divide that cost by the TBO of the engine, and that will give you an idea of what the value of the engine is, or per hour. So for this particular aircraft, all in on an overhaul is right around $30,000. And $30,000 divided by 2,000 hour TBO gives a value of about $15 per hour. And that's another way to normalize the cost of all the airplanes. So if one airplane that looks like a really good deal, but only has 300-400 hours left on the engine, and there's another airplane that seems pretty expensive, but it's only 2 hours after its overhaul, you can use that $15 per hour to normalize all the airplanes against each other, to try and level them out at like some fixed standard hours. A lot of times, like VREF uses 1,000 hours, so it normalizes them all to 1,000 hours. If engine overhaul is not a problem for you, you don't need to do this. Like if you're just using it as a trainer, you're planning on selling it in a year, in that case you may just want to buy something with low time, just so nothing goes wrong for you. And that's it. And once you get your spreadsheet, you can kind of compare all the airplanes next to each other, kind of on a apples-to-apples comparison. Because, like I said, they're not all going to meet your requirements. So you're going to want to make that spreadsheet to say, hey, if I buy this one, this is how much it's really going to cost me. Versus buying this other one, how much that one's going to cost me. So the lessons I learned in the first one is I bought that Cessna 172, and I wanted to use it as my instrument trainer, in order to get my instrument rating. And it didn't have an ILS, any equipment for conducting ILS approaches in the aircraft. It did not have a nav radio that could receive a glide slope signal. It didn't have a OBS with a glide slope indicator on it. Didn't have marker beacons. Had pretty much none of that stuff. So I had to install that, and when I bought it, I was at least smart enough to say, okay, this is how much it's going to cost, but I vastly underestimated the cost of labor and how much it was to install it. And the one thing that I learned is it seemed like whatever the radios cost, that's pretty much what labor is going to cost. So if you're buying a set of avionics for $3,000, you know, assume it's going to be about $3,000 worth of labor to install that thing.
Oh, great guess.
And we're pretty close to our destination of Port Clinton.
County 70, this is West Bay.
The airport is right there. We're going to fly past it and we're going to go check out Cedar Point since it's only another 10 miles or so past there. And we'll do a flight around there and then we'll come back to Port Clinton. In part 2 of how I buy an airplane, it's going to be, you know, we have a airplane picked out. Now what? You know, how do you actually go about making the sale? So we'll cover that in the next part after we land at Port Clinton on the way back to Willow Run. So you can see the rides there at Cedar Point. Got a little bit of traffic that's at my altitude, and we're converging. Port Clinton traffic, Mooney 16 Delta Romeo, left downwind 27, Port Clinton. Alright, gas is on fullest tank. Fuel pump coming on. Undercarriage coming down. My mixture is rigidening up. Props full forward. Flaps coming in. Belts. Pushes are all on. And Port Clinton traffic, Mooney 16 Delta Romeo, turn left to base. 27 Port Clinton.
Party 7, 3 miles.
Port Clinton traffic, Mooney 16 Delta Romeo, turn and final. 27 Port Clinton.
Traffic, there's some stairs on a base for 28 Middlebath.
Port Clinton traffic, Mooney 201 Bravo Whiskey is entering a left downwind runway 27, Port Clinton.
Alright, cheated death again.
Port Clinton traffic, Mooney 3526 November, departing runway 27, westbound departure, Port Clinton.
Wow, it's Mooney Day at Port Clinton.
Good day to be here.
And Mooney 16 Delta Romeo is clear the active Port Clinton.